We'll be available to watch through Microsoft Teams after the meeting is over. We'll make sure to post it on Ohio EPA's YouTube channel. And if you don't want your image to be captured on the recording, you can turn off your camera at this time. If you're not presenting or participating in a discussion, we ask you to mute yourself, your computers and phones, whichever you're using. So please keep it muted throughout the call to eliminate any background noise. If you have any questions, you can utilize the chat throughout the presentation. You can also use the raise hand feature, and we'll call on you to ask your question. If you're unable to send questions through the chat for whatever reason, please email myself, and I'll be sure to relay them on to Lindsay. If you're calling in, you can press *6 to unmute during the meeting, and that's all I got.
Thank you. All right. How about you go ahead and put your email in the chat, please. All right. Our first segment of our meeting will be Ohio EPA updates, and he already hit the recording button, so thank you. So Ohio EPA updates. Our first update is from Michelle Mountjoy for our rules update.
Thanks, Lindsay. Hi, my name is Michelle Mountjoy. I'm the rules coordinator for the Division of Materials and Waste Management. What's going on with rules right now? We don't have a whole lot that's active. Of course, we're working behind the scenes on a lot of different rule projects, but most notably, we have a composting rules correction package that's been filed with JCAR. JCAR is the Joint Committee on Agency Rule Review. That's the legislative body that oversees our rulemaking process. And they are reviewing this composting package. If you're familiar with it, the correction, it was just to citing criteria in the Class 2 composting rules. We had two different citing criteria that conflicted with each other. So we wanted to rectify that and just file that rule along with two other ones in the Class 1s and the Class 3s just to clarify. Those didn't have conflicts. They just needed some clarification on the same citing criteria. We have a public hearing later this month for those rules. If you'd like to attend, you can reach out to me, or you can attend via our public notice on our rules page. Our rules website has a public notice, and inside the notice is the link to register for the webinar, or you can join in person. Let's see what else. The budget bill was introduced a couple weeks ago to the legislature, and that is House Bill 33. So anybody who is interested in that whole process and how it's starting to kick off can go on the legislature's website and see what proposed changes EPA has in their statutes, or even other agencies as well. Finally, something that's going to be upcoming, hopefully in the next couple of months, is our operations rule for MSW landfills. That is 2719. And we are still working on getting an interested party draft prepared for your review and comment. However, we're hoping to wrap things up soon. And one of the biggest changes you're going to realize is that the rule has moved from 2719, and it's going to be in a new chapter. It's going to be 3745-535. And this is going to help because, and all of you who read Rule 19 on a regular basis know it's a very long rule, and sometimes it's hard to scroll through to see where you want to be. So this new rule will be a set of rules, and so that it smaller chunks, hopefully easier to digest, and hopefully a little bit more clear on the regulatory aspect as well. Okay, Lindsay, I'm going to stop. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Email's great. I usually respond quicker to email than phone calls.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us all those updates. I look forward to more information as they develop. And thanks again for your time for us this morning. Next, we have our DIMWIM fee rules update that came into effect the first of the year. And we have Ernie Stahl, who will give us a little bit, as he just completed a fees rules update webinar, or on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. So The fee rules, changes to the fee rules were adopted on January 8th. And I did a webinar on Tuesday for those fee rules. If you were not there, I'm trying not to take offense that you weren't interested enough in me just to attend. But anyhow, we recorded the webinar. It's posted on YouTube. I'm going to put the link to it in the chat for you. And then we're going to be posting my presentation slides as well as the link on our webpage as well. So I'll go on and send that. If you weren't at the webinar and you have any questions about what the fee rules, any changes that were made, please give me a call. We didn't make any real substantive changes. So overall, it wasn't like much that would affect in terms of what you need to know, but just give me a call.
Thank you, Ernie, for helping us remind us about those fees rule updates. Next, we have Matt Hiddle reviewing the ADR surveys that have opened. Just a reminder.
Okay, yeah. And available for your reporting for 2022 data. And we are in the background working to get all of the data from the organics food waste haulers, as well as all of the big box store data. And we'll be compiling that. As you know, we always aim for May 1st to get that out to you. I don't know if we've ever hit that date, but we always aim for May 1st. And we'll get it to you as soon as possible. So I think that's all I have related to the ADRs. But while I'm here, I'll go ahead and reference the project we're doing with the Recycling Partnership for drop-off contamination. We did award monies to 3 different entities, which were Mahoning County and Ottawa, Sandusky, Seneca, and Athens Hocking. And they are moving forward and getting some pieces in place to have all that started here in the spring, where you should be seeing a press release from the statewide or even a national perspective relating to that project here very soon. I'm expected to go out sometime next week. So that's all I got. Feel free to send any questions you have.
Thank you, Matt. And as you said, we are working on getting the data for you across the state. And thanks for working heavily on helping get the recycling drop-off grant up and running. Next, we have Ernie will jump back on and talk briefly a little bit about the conclusion of the cardboard project update.
Hello again. So at the end of January, beginning of February, we had 3 meetings with paper mills and solid waste districts to sort of get people linked up together to look at ways that maybe the paper mills and solid waste districts can work together on recovering additional cardboard. Those meetings went really well. At this point, we've kind of left it up to the paper mills and the solid waste districts to continue their discussions without us. But if there's any way that we can help assist, we're more than happy to. It would be great if you've made any progress on anything with them. If you could just shoot me an email real quickly, just so we can keep on top of what's going on in the state. And I will be reaching back out to the paper mills here shortly just to see how things are going from their perspective and if there's anything else we can do to help facilitate. So the only other thing I'll say is that Greif Paper is interested in talking to districts in the entire state. So if you'd be interested in talking to Greif Paper, please let me know, and we will try to get you in touch with them.
Fantastic. And that brings up, if there is anything that your district is, that you need to brainstorm with any of us, please reach out to all of us in the Solid Waste District Planning Unit. We are here to help, and to help, your ideas kind of helped us start the cardboard project in addition to some other aspects that got that ball rolling. We are doing a small plastic version of this project as well, and Jeff is kind of heading that up, and he'll kind of briefly talk a little bit about the beginning stages of that, and then also mention the newsletter that we have out.
Right, yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, just a little bit about the plastic recovery we're trying to work on. there is a high demand for HDPE in Ohio right now. So we're just trying to find ways to increase the amount that's being recovered and make sure those get to the end users. So we're trying to set up a small group of people who have expressed they have locally owned MRFs. Of course, this could apply to every district or state too, just to get more HDPE into the so it's being recovered. So if you have any ideas, if you're interested in being involved in that, let us know. But we'll be probably a meeting toward the end of March to get kind of people talking with some of the end users to see what can be done to recover more plastics there too. And just quickly about the newsletter. Last year, the planning unit started a quarterly newsletter. So hopefully many of you have seen that in your inbox, but the goals of it have just been to highlight projects and activities that solid waste management districts are doing, as well as some of those from Ohio EPA's group health departments. And we also try to address topics that are important to districts and health departments in the newsletter. So as we mentioned, we're scheduled to be on a quarterly basis. The last one we sent was mailed in January, and the next one's going to be coming out in April. So we hope the newsletter is of value to you. If you have any programs you would like to share from your district or any suggestions for content, let us know. We'll be glad to consider those ideas for a future issue and talk with you about that. And if you haven't received a copy in your email, you may not be on our mailing list. So if you want to be added, just send me an email and I'll add you to the list, and I'll put my email address in the chat here so you can reach out if you've not received those. So that's pretty much what we've got on the newsletter in the plastic recovery right now.
Thank you, Jeff. Those are two other additional things that we're trying to reach out to solid waste districts and being able to get our information out to you better. Again, we're trying to improve our communication back and forth. And so if you do need any, any ideas or need assistance, please reach out to our planning staff. Next, we're going to switch and have an update from our SWATO president, Erica Tucker. Hopefully Erica is on.
Yeah, I'm on. How are you?
Good.
Good. Yeah, we don't have a whole lot today. I just wanted to mention that SWATO had its first meeting on Thursday, February 2nd. We're doing the virtual meetings as well, and we're going to try and have one meeting this year in person. I know that we are working with you as well to do our work group meeting, hopefully in August. So we'll keep you posted on that. But our February 2nd meeting, like I said, not a whole lot was discussed, but we did have a couple presenters. Joel with ODOT came and spoke about their highway beautification and pollinator habitat program. So that was really interesting. And then we also had Katie Ohl with Zebra Solutions, which is, if some of you districts know, is the big green box for batteries. We still utilize them for our battery recycling. I think what I understand is they just all merged into one company now called Zebra Solutions. So trying to think what else. Oh, we had dates for the Partners Conference. Looks like it's October 23rd and 24th. And trying to think what else. I think that's it. So our next meeting with the SWATO is May 11th.
Thank you, Erica. Thanks for taking some time to share that information with us. And it sounds like that was a good presentation, especially as we're heading into spring and that litter is starting to peek through and needs to be cleaned up as the weather starts to change. Hopefully everybody got a chance to get outside yesterday and enjoy the nice outside. But it will be time that we need to do some spring cleaning for our Mother Earth as well. So thank you. Next, I'm going to bring on Chet, who is our environmental manager for our planning unit. And we have had several new solid waste district directors here join us. Some of you moved around, but join us here in the last 2 months. And so we just want to have Chet recognize you.
Okay. Lindsay, can you hear me? Okay. I apologize. I've been having technical difficulty with my tablet this morning. So first of all, thank you all for tuning in this morning for the work group meeting. All this information is very valuable information that we wanted to make sure that we get out to you all and get feedback from you. As some of you may know, obviously, as time goes on, people have the right to retire and move on to their second or third career. And we've had 4 solid waste districts who are experiencing that switch over. And we just wanted to take a moment to kind of recognize some new faces, and in some cases, some familiar faces, but maybe with different solid waste districts. So Kim Masters, who was not able to make it today due to a prior commitment, is now the director of the Coshocton, Fairfield, Licking, Perry Joint Solid Waste Management District. And as you know, Carol Phillips had been there for many years, and Kim was the assistant director for the solid waste district, and she has been there for 29 years, so that's a long time. And I am sure she will be available at our next work group meeting, so you'll obviously get to meet her, and probably at partners conferences and all that good stuff. So I just wanted to state that. She also will be hiring, I understand, an assistant. So hopefully that person will also be able to network with you all in the very near future. So Barb Walton, who used to be at another solid waste district, was named for Medina County Solid Waste District as their new director. Barb originally was with Carroll, Columbiana, and Harrison Solid Waste District for 18 years, and just became the director for Medina County on December the 19th of last year. So many of you know Barb, and so if you get a chance to reach out to her and congratulate her, I'm sure she'll be on many of these calls as well as many events with solid waste districts. Mike Ryder is, that name may sound familiar. It's partly because Mike is Rob Ryder's son, is the new director for Southeastern Ohio Joint Solid Waste Management District. And Mike has taken over a lot of the operational and logistical side of things of the district. I know Matt Hiddle and myself were down to say goodbye to Rob as he goes off into his retirement, but also to meet with Mike and staff to talk to them about their new responsibilities. So if you get a chance, reach out to Mike and congratulate him. And then there's Dan Scherger in Wood County Solid Waste Management District. He is also the Assistant County Administrator for Wood County. Unfortunately, he has a county commissioner commitment this morning, so he's not on the call. But we wanted to recognize him as well, since he is the new Solid Waste Management Director up in Wood County. And they are approaching the final stages for approval for their plans. So that's a lot going on in Wood County. And so if I missed anybody, I apologize, but I think that was our list of folks that have just recently come on. And as we tell all our new directors, I know that you directors that have been in this business for some time have always offered the opportunity to share your experience and knowledge with new folks. And I'm sure that will continue. So if you have an opportunity to meet with these folks, please do so, and share whatever information you have. We really do like the fact that you have that camaraderie. Ooh, if I could talk this morning, that'd be great. But the connection that you all have with each other is really outstanding and very much appreciated, because obviously we want to make sure that that experience is used in a practical way, and solid waste districts can learn from each other. So having said that, I'll hand it back to you, Lindsay, And again, congratulations to all the new solid waste management district directors.
Thank you, Chet. We do have Barb and Mike on today. If either of you want to show your camera or say anything, I'll give you a chance to do that. If not, that is fine as well. But we do want to say thank you and welcome in your new positions.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Mike.
How you doing today?
Good. Thanks. Thanks for
Just
taking some
saying
time
hi.
to join us
Everybody
today.
sees my face.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to see you again, Chet.
Good seeing you, Mike.
All right. I think that kind of concludes most of our kind of update type of things. Our first presenter for today is Mallory Greasy from the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. And she is working really hard on their project, the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Gardens Net Zero by 2025 goal. So it's exciting to hear all that she has been doing and what the facility there is doing and their vision to be net zero. And it's just more than just, one thing of net zero. So I'll turn it over to Mallory.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm Mallory Garrissey. I'm the Net Zero Waste Manager at the zoo. I'm going to kind of go over all of the net zero goals, not just the zero waste goal, even though that's the one that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Is this Fiona, by the way?
This is Fiona, yes. So I was given the suggestion by our VP to start every presentation with a picture of Fiona, and apparently he was right. He says it puts everybody in a great mood. This is Fiona. If you don't know her, she's the best. She's featured pretty often in our social media, so check that out. But yeah, so just a little bit about me. Like I said, I'm the Net Zero Waste Manager. I went to Ohio State, got my degree in zoology, so that's where I was before this. And then I worked for a time there in the sustainability office. And then about a year and a half ago-ish, I came to the zoo. So I started in June of 21. It's been an amazing experience. I love it here. We're doing a lot of really awesome work. I'm just going to scratch the surface of that today. Feel free to reach out if you have more questions. I could talk about all of this all day long. And my favorite animal is a giraffe. That's everybody's favorite question to ask people that work at the zoo. So like I said, so our main focus right now for sustainability at the zoo is our net zero initiatives. So we launched those goals in, I believe, 2018. It's net zero energy, water, and waste by 2025. And the way that we're defining those goals is for energy, we want to produce more solar energy for electricity than we're taking from the grid. And then for water, we want to collect and reuse every drop of water that falls on our campus. And then for waste, diverting 90% or more of our waste from the landfill, all by 2025. So we're full speed ahead right now. Waste has been kind of the trickiest one, and I'm gonna talk about that more later. But just to kind of give a brief overview of some of the main priority projects that are happening in each of those right now. So for energy, we've already got a 1.56 megawatt array over our parking lot. And then we've got a few smaller ones on top of some of the buildings that we have. We are in the process of developing a 2 megawatt array over our new parking lot. And we're toying with making that out of structurally engineered bamboo instead of steel. So that's pretty cool. I'll show a picture of that next. We're also installing a microgrid and a battery storage system with that new array. And then if you're not familiar with our farm, we have a farm that the zoo owns in Warren County. So it's kind of Mason area. It's about 600 acres. It's called Boyer Farm. We are leasing quite a bit of land up there for a 25 megawatt array. So that's really amazing. That just broke ground recently. We don't own that array, but we're facilitating the project and leasing the land. And then we're really refining our utility data collection, reporting, metering, and controls processes. So this is a picture of kind of what the structurally engineered bamboo is going to look like. We're working with a company called Renew Tech on that. This is going to be the new parking lot, a new array, and then this over here is the existing one. So for water, we've already implemented about 500,000 gallons worth of stormwater collection capacity and reuse. So if you're familiar with the zoo, that's in our Africa habitat, in our Rue Valley habitats. So we've significantly reduced the pressure on our combined sewer overflow system in Cincinnati, which is a big problem here, and reduced our city water demand. We are also implementing about 1 million gallons. That number is fluctuating a little bit as things get finalized. Of stormwater collection and reuse under the new elephant habitat. That's a huge project because it's going to involve basically pumping all of that water up through the rest of the zoo. The habitat's like at the bottom of the hill. If you're familiar with the zoo, we're kind of on a big hill. So that's a huge project. And then again, refining that data process. For waste, this is where I spend most of my time. Our main priority right now is determining a way to compost our back of house animal waste with the goal of selling and using that product. If we can, that is the majority of our waste stream. So that's kind of why it's our main priority. And then we're establishing a process to make all of our events at the zoo zero waste events, just to kind of dip our toes in the water of post-consumer collection. Standardizing back of house waste infrastructure, signage, and education. So right now, if you walk into any operational building at the zoo, you're going to see all different kinds of bins and signage. A lot of it's very old and out of date. So we're working on that. And then institutionalizing some specialty recycling initiatives that are kind of like pet projects throughout the park right now. So kind of like passion projects, and it's not built into the zoo operations. So we're working on doing that so that we can expand some of those initiatives. So to dive a little bit more into the organic waste issue, we produce about 2.5 tons of organic waste a day. That does not include any guest related organic waste. A lot of that is elephant waste, and we're also getting more elephants, so that's going to increase. And only a few 100 pounds of that is food waste from, we've got a few cafes on campus, and then we do get some food waste from the animal departments. So in order to handle that, we embarked on a journey with an aerobic digester with a company called Harp Renewables. So that's what's pictured here. You can kind of see the whole operational setup. That's me, probably looking concerned. We learned a lot with this machine. We do still have it. It was we were leasing it from this company. It's been broken down for about a year. So if that tells you anything about how it's been going, the mixer broke, it almost caught on fire. It was a whole thing, but we're working on kind of figuring out what we're going to do with this. But just to kind of talk a little bit more about that experience, we've had a lot of people very interested in talking to us about what we learned from this machine. So again, it's Harp Renewables is the company. This machine is their CX5. It processes 1,000 pounds a day. It's basically like a steel box. It's got heat pads, temp sensors, kind of 2 chambers, even though it's kind of one singular chamber. I'll explain that a little more. Input and output auger, a paddle mixer in the middle that you can see here, and then a proprietary mixture of bugs and enzymes that are designed to speed up the process. So you put in the waste down at this end. The mixing paddles move it this way as it processes, and then it comes out over here as like a soil amendment product. So some of our biggest takeaways from this process, so we kind of were unknowingly, unexpectedly a guinea pig for this technology, especially for our use case. There were a lot of design and engineering issues with the machine that we didn't really know about. And we definitely got a lack of support from the company. They promised a lot of things they really didn't deliver on. They kind of dropped the machine off and left us high and dry. The machine is primarily designed for and works best for food waste, which again is really not the bulk of our waste stream. And then we were realizing that the product that was coming out when we were putting primarily animal waste through it is sort of just dried out animal waste. It's not like a fully processed compost product. So we were kind of realizing, okay, well, it's going to come out of this machine. We're still going to have to mix it with something, process it further. So, we were really hoping it was kind of going to be the smoking gun. We put it in, it comes out, and it's usable, it's sellable. And so we were learning that was kind of not going to be the case. We were getting very minimal volume reduction from what we were putting in. And so we realized our voluminous material was going to require several of these machines, or one very, very large one, like bigger than they even make right now. We just don't have that much room on campus at the zoo to be able to implement that here. So in this picture, this was when we were primarily processing elephant dung. And if you're familiar at all with an elephant turd, it basically just looks like a wet, compacted version of what you see here. So really not a lot of complete processing going on here. So to kind of talk a bit about next steps, we are going to do another year with the CX5 and kind of give HARP a second chance. They've made a lot of changes to the company and to the machine design. They're really on board with helping us out now. Fingers crossed. We're hoping that's going to turn out a little bit better than it did before, but we are going to shift that scope and focus just on food waste, really get better data on how much food waste we can get from our cafes. And again, all back of house, not post-consumer, and our animal departments, and hope that what comes out of that is going to be a sellable fertilizer product that can essentially pay for the operations in the machine. For the rest of that animal waste, we are looking to our space at Boyer Farm as our solution right now. We're kind of at the drawing board still to try to figure out, how do we get all of it up there? What do we do with it once it's there? We would love to be able to use it as a soil amendment on our farm. We grow hay and browse for our animals up there. So browse is like tree branches with leaves for animals that forage, like elephants and giraffe and stuff. So we would love to be able to use that to help increase our yields and the health of the things that we're growing up there. There's also a lot of other amazing initiatives happening at the farm. If you live around here and are able to check it out, I highly recommend it. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And then just to talk about Earth Day real quick. So there is going to be a tabling event throughout the zoo on I don't know if the 22nd is actually Earth Day, but on the 22nd with various tables and different organizations. And there's going to be a lot of cool people to talk to. So that'll be advertised more on social media closer to the date. So keep an eye out for that. And that's all I have. I know I went really fast. I wanted to leave some time for questions. But if we don't get to all your questions today, feel free to reach out. Like I said, there's so much going on here. There's a lot of amazing work. And we're always very open to sharing what we're working on. So.
Well, thank you, Mallory. I'm inspired that you haven't given up. Like, oh my gosh, that's
yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot, but it's awesome to work
The goals
Yeah.
seem like unobtainable, and then you run into all these challenges, and
Yeah.
that just shows a lot about you and the organization. To keep fighting and moving forward and drudging through all those challenges. So I commend you for that, and thank you.
Thank you. We're very
for
willing to
leading-
try and fail. So
for leading the way, and then also being willing to share your information, so that all the rest of us can not maybe fail as much. But it sounds like a great project, and it is my understanding. I think that you are an option even for the members that attend the Partners Conference in October to kind of come out to the zoo. And explore and see some of these things kind of firsthand if you don't make it down there for Earth Day. And Earth Day is April the 22nd. So that will be on Earth Day for your tabling event. Does anybody have any questions? You did such a fantastic job.
thank you. But yeah, if you think of anything later, feel free to reach out. Lindsay's got my email. So yeah, thanks for having me again.
I do have one question that just popped in, and it says, can you talk a little about the waste audits that you do?
Yes, I can. So I have only personally done one waste audit since I've been here. I did kind of a smaller scale one back in January of last year to focus on our animal departments that don't have dumpsters. So several of we've got, I think like 6 or 7 animal departments that have their own dumpster that Rumpke comes and picks up directly. But we've also got quite a few departments that just put their waste in bags, and then our Park Services department picks that up and puts it in another front load that Rumpke then picks up. So I wanted to get a better understanding of what kind of waste was going in those bags from the animal departments. A lot of it ended up being substrate mixed with animal waste from like a lot of the yards and habitats. So that's kind of what I was looking at last year to help kind of refine some of our numbers, because what we get from Rumpke is difficult to parse out. But the zoo did a huge waste audit back in, I believe it was 2014. So I was not a part of that. But it is what kind of led to this idea that roughly 80% of our waste is that animal organic waste. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We would love to do another one. We've had some discussions with Rumpke about how we might make that work. We've got a lot of trash. So yeah, any other questions?
Well, thank you. Again, thanks for diving in a little deeper about those waste audits as well. We always learn so much from them. I know that they're a big task, and it seems like the dreaded task to do them, but it is so valuable to figure out what we're doing and where things can go and how to make the process better. So thanks for getting that information as well. And then, all right, well, thank you. And now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about tires. So thankfully, our scrap unit here at Ohio EPA is willing to join us today to give us some tire program updates that they're working on. So we have Shannon Conan and we also have Matt Conrad. They're going to tag team it. And Shannon, you are still muted.
Thank you.
There you go.
So I just want to share my face. I'm at home and I always have connection problems. So just want you to be able to put a face with the name. And then now I'm going to stop sharing my camera. Okay. So please, as I mentioned, I do have connection issues. So if I get choppy, let me know. As Lindsay mentioned, my name is Shannon Cohen Denson and I am with the Scrap Tire Unit. I work on rule updates, provide compliance assistance, review beneficial use requests, and work on program development projects. Matthew Conrad is also with the scrap tire unit, and he performs all scrap tire remediation. We do have a new face that will work with us from time to time on scrap tire projects, and her name is Courtney Nugent. And if time permits, our supervisor Kelly Jeter will provide some information today. If Courtney and Kelly and our manager Bruce want to just show their faces so you know that they do tire work at Ohio EPA, that would be wonderful. Show those pretty faces. Uh-oh. Bruce. Oh. Awesome.
Hello.
Oh.
Good morning.
Okay. So Matt, just advance. I'm going to have you advance the slides for me next. Today, Matt and I are going to cover the following topics. I will share information about changes to the scrap tire annual reports, a new scrap tire education resource, the status of the scrap tire rule package, and the status of the scrap tire grant program. Matt will cover updates to the scrap tire remediation program. Next. ReTrack comes to the scrap tire unit. Next. Since 2012, DMWIM has published an annual report that shows county scrap tire generation values based on the amount of scrap tires reported as picked up by registered scrap tire transporters. This report was generated in Access that is no longer supported by Ohio EPA's IT department. Fortunately, this year, DMWIM was able to contract with ReTrack to add the scrap tire transporter annual report form and scrap tire facility annual report form into the ReTrack platform. So while we now are able to have the transporters and facilities electronically report to the agency, we are still working on developing the traditional report that has been published in the past. What this means for 2023 is that the report may not be available in time for solid waste management districts to enter the data into their annual district reports. This information may have to be entered in the district's recycling totals at a later date. You're welcome, Ernie. Next slide. Scrap tire education resource. Next. I am so excited to share this resource with you. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Into the Outdoors. It is an education network that targets youth and adults. As it describes itself, it is part science lesson and part adventure. Into the Outdoors uncovers the stories behind sensible solutions to creating a better planet while the kid hosts have some fun along the way. Into the Outdoors also arms educators everywhere with educational video resources alongside lesson plans and various science categories. Next slide. You may already use this resource. Into the Outdoors just recently created a video about recycling scrap tires. Yay! To accompany the video, it also has created lesson plans for middle school and high school students. Next slide. I just want to tell you a little bit about the video. The video is about 26 minutes long, and it covers the scrap tire problem in Michigan and Colorado, environmental and health issues related to improper tire management, well-known recycled scrap tire uses such as mulch, AstroTurf, and rubberized asphalt, less known uses such as tire-derived aggregate in civil engineering applications, stormwater filtration potential, and rubber barriers. It defines environmental terms like brownfield, stormwater, introduces engineering concepts such as lateral load, and provides recycling statistics. Next slide. Definitely a new awesome resource for Solid Waste World. So far, there is not a date to show the video locally in Ohio, but the app that shows the video can be downloaded and is available to view on your iOS, Android, or smart TV devices. Next slide. Next slide, please. This video can also be watched at Into the Outdoors website. The address is on the previous slide, so when you get a copy of this, unless you already go to the website, You'll have the address. Next slide, Matt. Thanks. This video was funded by Michigan's environmental agency called Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, also known as EGLE, Colorado's Department of Public Health and Environment, and First State Tire Recycling. Next slide. Status of scrap tire rule update. Next slide. DMWIM is trying to stick to this timeline to have the updated scrap tire rules become effective by the end of June. So we're hoping to file the rules with JCAR, which stands for the Joint Committee on Agency Rule Review, in April. Go through the JCAR hearing process in May or June. Michelle knows all about that. If you have questions, file the scrap tire rules final, and then hopefully the rules will become effective late June. Next slide. Last, I want to discuss Ohio EPA's education and outreach program for scrap tire generating businesses. Just a refresher, based on discussions had and recommendations received from the 2016 Scrap Tire Summit and the 2018 Scrap Tire Forum, DMWIM decided to develop a scrap tire generator education and outreach campaign. This campaign is made up of 3 phases. The first phase is complete and involved the creation of the Scrap Tire Generator Toolkit. We are presently in the second phase, and it consists of creating, piloting, and refining a model, for lack of a better word, for providing education and outreach for scrap tire generating businesses. Phase 3 will include broad-scale implementation of the model, monitoring the efficiency of the model, developing a statewide scrap tire generating business database, determining whether a permanent grant program is needed to implement the model, implementation of regional improvements to the scrap tire management infrastructure based on data gathered from the model, and then making other improvements as they become apparent. Next slide. The Scrap Tire Generator Toolkit is available on Ohio EPA's Scrap Tire Program webpage. It has its own dedicated tab. It serves as a repository of all scrap tire generator resources. The toolkit was created for Ohio EPA's partners, solid waste management districts, health departments, and local law enforcement. It has been out since 2019, and most of you are familiar with it. Next slide. The first part of the toolkit provides a write-up of every education resource that DMWIM has for our partners to educate scrap tire generators. The second part of the toolkit provides information about the resources and processes at Ohio EPA that our partners can utilize when addressing improper scrap tire management. It also covers the resources that can be utilized by our partners that the Ohio Attorney General's office has available to address improper scrap tire management. Some of these resources will change or go away when the scrap tire rules become effective. Next slide. The program to provide education and outreach to scrap tire generating businesses includes a model, for lack of a better word. And what I mean by that is we may actually change what we call the model. So just, be aware of that. So it involves a model and a grant program to implement the model. I want to briefly cover how the model was developed that will be used to educate scrap tire generating businesses. Ohio EPA surveyed its partners to better understand the qualitative information they gained from inspecting and interacting with scrap tire generating businesses. Ohio EPA also surveyed scrap tire generating businesses via paper surveys, in-person interviews, and SurveyMonkey to glean how they have their scrap tires delivered, removed, and how they store their scrap tires. DMWIM decided to utilize the community-based social marketing methodology since it utilizes tools that have a proved record of working for the public sector and supports local involvement. A work group committee of various stakeholders that included local law enforcement, solid waste management district representation, city litter representation, scrap tire generating businesses, solid waste and solid waste inspectors was formed to provide recommendations on the content of the model. Ohio EPA developed the model from the work group committee recommendations. Now we are ready to pilot the model. Next slide. Committee recommendations were to target 2 behaviors: use of a registered scrap tire transporter and the securing of scrap tires at the place of business. The recommendation was that it would have an educational focus. It would actually represent more of like compliance assistance versus identifying violations. It includes outreach to local officials and local law enforcement. And there was a recommendation to recognize scrap tire generating businesses that adopt the targeted behaviors. Next slide. The model that will be piloted requires the coordinator or whomever is going to perform the outreach to communicate with local government officials and law enforcement about the education and outreach program, identify scrap tire generating businesses within a targeted area of a municipality, township, county, etc. Visit these scrap tire generating businesses to provide education and outreach. Conduct follow-up visits to verify adoption of best practices, including securing scrap tires and using a registered scrap tire transporter. Recognizing scrap tire generating businesses that demonstrate proper scrap tire management, and then reporting the results to Ohio EPA. Next slide. The model must be implemented within 6 months. The coordinators are required to provide 3 consecutive visits to scrap tire generating businesses. The scrap tire generating business must be visited every 30 to 45 days. Scrap tire generating businesses that adopt the chosen behaviors will receive recognition, and a final report has to be submitted to Ohio EPA. Next slide. To kickstart implementation of the model and to ensure that our partners could implement it to evaluate its effectiveness, Ohio EPA has developed a grant program that will pay for an education and outreach coordinator to provide education and outreach to the scrap tire generating businesses in a targeted area. We hope to have the grant program for at least 3 fiscal years. Next slide. Presently, the only people that can apply for the grant are solid waste management districts, local law enforcement working with a solid waste management district, and any health department. The maximum that can be awarded to an applicant is $20,000 per targeted area, and the model has to be implemented within 6 months. Next slide. For the pilot, Ohio EPA is seeking statewide representation. The goal is to determine if refinement is needed to the model, and statewide participation will help DMWA make changes to the model that will prove positive for broad-scale implementation. So for this next fiscal year, we only have $200,000, and we're going to essentially divvy that up amongst targeted areas in each of Ohio EPA's district office. We would like a minimum of 2 targeted areas per EPA district office to try and get that statewide representation. Next slide. Preference will be given to counties that score a level 3 or level 4 in the 2021 State of Poverty in Ohio report, areas with a documented scrap tire dumping problem, and applicants that have pre-identified the scrap tire generating businesses in their areas. Next slide. Ideal participants include solid waste management districts that have dedicated education staff, access to an intern or seasonal staff, a working relationship with or that fund a health department, or solid waste management districts that have a working relationship with or that fund local law enforcement. Next slide. Once we receive the green light from our assistant chief, and the director, we plan to move full throttle ahead. Hopefully approval will line up with this tentative timeline. As you know, Implementation of this project seems to have the worst timing. First COVID, and it just seems to be one thing after another. But we're hopeful to have a webinar to discuss the grant application mid-April and start accepting grant applications by May 1st. Next slide. Please reach out to me or Kelly with questions about the grant program. We hope to start posting grant-related information to a dedicated tab on the Scrap Tire webpage starting in April. You will be emailed about all grant information. Now I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk about the remediation program. Thanks, Matt.
Good morning. So my name is Matt Conrad, and I take care of the scrap tire remediation for the state of Ohio. So I will be turning my camera off just to go further with the presentation. So I wanted to talk about a few things with the scrap tire, the no-fault cleanup specifically. So the no-fault cleanups, there's 6 conditions that are applicable. One of them is there has to be more than 100 tires, but less than 10,000 tires. This is not PTEs. PTEs is passenger tire equivalent. Right now it's set at 20 pounds per tire. So there might be some really large tires, but if we don't have 100, then they would not qualify for the program. So, and a lot of times you'll see PTEs in our numbers. That is because we go by, once we process the scale tickets from our contractor, that is how the contractor is paid. And so you see a lot of in our numbers we have PTEs, and we do put the how many tires that it would be equivalent to in our numbers as well. So this program is for private property owners, businesses, and local governments who are victims of open dumping. So of the 6 conditions, I wanted to kind of go over 2 through 6, which are pretty much self-explanatory. The property owner did not have knowledge or took actions to prevent tires from being placed on their property. Property owners did not participate in the consent to placing tires on the property. Property owner received no financial benefit. Property title was not transferred to evade liability, and responsible party who placed the tires on the property was not acting as an agent for the property owner. The one that I get the most questions about are tires placed after the owner acquired the title or tires placed before the owner acquired the title by bequest or devise. What that means is obviously the ones that are placed after the owner is pretty self-explanatory, that once somebody has bought the land and somebody's come along and dumped some tires on them. But the other part is specifically geared towards someone that had a family member that passed away, and they inherited that in the will that piece of property. That would be the bequest or devise. So the avenues of the cleanup are, the no fault, which is private property, citizens and businesses, local and county government. But also there is an enforcement side of things. Sometimes there's just no choice and we have to go through the enforcement. And that is generally a lot slower process because the steps we are required to take to use the scrap tire funds are a little more difficult in getting access. However, it is better to eventually get the tires cleaned up rather than have them stay on property forever, and ultimately it is worth it. So I wanted to kind of go over, since 2015, some of the projects. In 2015, there were 75 projects throughout the fiscal year, and we go from July 1st to June 30th. And so that year we had 75 projects, 332,118 PTEs, and slightly over 1 million tons. Or I'm sorry, slightly over $1 million was spent. In 2016, there were 27 projects. The PTEs went down and cost over 604,000. And as I'm going over these, the numbers tend to go down, and I'll explain that kind of at the end. So in 2017, we had 96 projects, 1,173,251,000 PTEs, slightly over $2.7 million to clean those up. 2018, 56 projects, over 200,000 PTEs, 731,483 to clean it up, and there was a little over 2,000 tons of tires. 2019, our projects went way up. However, you see the PTE still is a little bit lower. It's 158,289. Cost 765,000, and there's roughly around 1,583 tons of tires recycled. In 20, we had 150 projects. It was 138,353 PTEs. Cost to clean those up was 668,602, and we hauled away a little over 1,374 tons. In 21, 170 projects. Again, about the same PTE, a little bit more, 138,000. Cost is still going down. It's 415,814, and we hauled 1,382 tons. In the last couple of years, in 22, we had 186 projects, 147,220 PTEs. It cost $559,883 to clean up, and we hauled 1,472 tons. And so far to date, in 2023, we've done 114 projects. We've cleaned up 169,075 PTEs, and we're at 557,267 to clean those up, and we've hauled 1,691 tons. So the reason a lot of these, the prices have went down, the tonnage has went up, is due to the fact that some of these cleanups in the first years were big cleanups, and so anytime we have to bring our contractors on to clean these big properties up, the cost tends to go up with equipment cost. Now we're starting to get more pickups from our local governments and agencies that have cleaned up tires on city properties, or private individuals have been dumped on, and some of these projects do not require equipment. And so the cost actually has gone down. And I'm going to show you some pictures here in just a little bit. So with this next slide, I just want to kind of give an update. There's all of the solid waste management districts in the counties will be getting, have already started receiving emails. And what this is this just a notification for you what's going on in your counties. And I wanted to kind of go over what these notice to proceeds look like and what you're seeing. So this is a standard, a recent notice to proceed. This is for obviously where the circle is, it's Youngstown. And how that reads is Youngstown city property. There's a street name, but that 15 is actually, it's the number that we use for our documentation that is the 15th pickup at that site. And so it doesn't mean that there's 15 tires. And so, just kind of wanted to go over that. There's some information, our numbers. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is this box, this red box on the second page. And this just basically has, who we're in contact with, where the location is, what county it's in, what district in Ohio it's in. My number will always be on these as well as the inspector for that area. The quote is generally what the contractor has given me. For instance, if Youngstown said they had 400 tires, I would send them the information and they would send me back a quote. And so this is the quote saying that, we pick up 400 tires, as well as the, all the people on the mailing list down here at the bottom. This is in 2022, this is a map of all of our cleanups. The local businesses, there are a few local businesses that had tires dumped on them, but as you can see, the majority are citizens and cities and governments. And as far as a few of the sites that I wanted to just kind of show you of what we do. So this is in Clermont County. This is in Southwest Ohio. This is ODNR East Fork State Park. This site was a unique site. It was about a mile back in and about a half mile down a horse trail. And these tires have been there for quite a few years. Our ODNR had submitted an application. They had quite a few people on the trails that started complaining about all the tires. And the problem with the tires is, these tires are obviously dark. They attract sunlight, and they are a big time breeding ground for mosquitoes. And this is also a fire issue because this would be really hard for fire trucks to get to. And so that was a big concern. And so as we clean this up, here's another picture of the valley, or right in the bottom. And then I have a couple after pictures. This is where that big group of tires was. And this was going down the creek. Or the little drainage there. And so all the tires were gathered. So this site, this is actually Youngstown. So I showed you the NTP, and it was roughly around $1,200 for that cleanup. So this is what it was to begin with, and this is why information is it's good to get out there, and because people don't know of the program. These are all tires that have been picked up from state property, alleys, roadways, city parks, that they did not know where to go with them, and so they piled them up. This actual site cost a lot to clean up, obviously, because we had to bring in equipment to do that. And that really drives up the cost. And so we actually hauled away 127 tons of tires here. And it cost a little over $32,000 to clean this site up. I'm happy to say that since then we have built a rapport with them, and we have now a pickup site that once the city gets gets over 200 tires, then we schedule a pickup. So in these cities and townships, they fill out the application. Their applications are good for 2 years. And so as they get the amount of tires, then they all they have to do after their application has been approved, they can call and we will schedule a pickup. Now, these are only qualifying tires. So these are not tires from public properties that citizens have dropped off. These are tires that have been truly dumped, not generated by towns or cities. So a couple of the other ones, this is generally what a pickup looks like. So this is Gallia County. So they're inside, they're covered. When they start to get full, they're giving me a call, they're sending me a picture, and they already have an application on the file, and these have been picked up from the roads and the alleys. And then the second picture here on this screen is after our contractor has went in and picked it up. And here again is Ironton City in Lawrence County. And again, it's, we'd like to see the covered, and they give us a call and we schedule the pickup. Another unique one was down in Hamilton County in Southwest Ohio. This one was unique because it was a rental property, and the renter was evicted, and once the landowner had went in, they had the renter had stashed tires everywhere he could think of. And so this is a grain bin that actually had been stashed with a lot of tires. And this site actually, I'm going to go back one. This site, we pulled 102 tons of tires out of barns, sheds. Even the house had tires in it, and the grain bins. And so with this, I also want to, if there is an issue with dumping in the same place, we do have a special investigation unit, and so you could call any one of us, and we can get you in contact with them to try and investigate and to catch people from dumping. So that is an option. But I also wanted to just bring your attention to when you get these NTPs, just as a convenience so you know what's going on in your county. This is just for your information. A lot of these are private properties, and so the access that we have is for EPA and the contractor. And so if you would want to visit these sites, which not all sites require equipment, and so scheduling these sites, I mean, it really depends, but you would need to get the actual private property owner's consent. This is for safety issues, and just kind of wanted to bring that to your attention. And if you ever have any questions, this is my contact information. And like Shannon said, anytime if you have questions, if you're looking to set up something, give me a call, and we can see if there's anything we could do. And this is our scrap tire unit and the contact information. And that concludes my slide. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if anyone has any questions for Shannon.
Just wanted to know, Kelly Jeter, did you want to say something real quick? I know we're kind of over our time, but
I can wait. The only thing I was going to do is give a quick update on the scrap tire provisions that were in House Bill 33. But I mean, if folks want to go read those instead themselves, I can wait. I don't want to take up anyone else's time. I know, Lindsay, how are we doing? Do we have another minute, or should we just skip it for today?
You have a minute, but we do have one question.
Okay.
before we move on to kind of a new subject, is if someone is willed the property, can you go and help that person pick up the tires?
Yeah, so we would need, so that happens pretty frequently. But so if they're saying that they inherited, what we actually have them do is we have them give us either a copy of the will or the property transmittal, because we often get people saying, oh yeah, I inherited it, and they mark it on the form, but then you go and you actually look at the property transfer and no, they actually bought it, and then that would knock them out. So if you buy a property with tires on it, the statute isn't set up to let us clean that up for you. It's only if you actually inherit it. And as long as you can provide documentation to assure us that you did inherit it, you're good. The only caveat to that would be if the person that inherited the property, like say it was a, family running a tire shop and the family dumped the tires there, and then the secondary family member inherited. So like if you're responsible for the tires being there, you still get knocked out. But we've had a lot of places where, you've had these children inheriting their parents' properties where they were like hoarding tires, or they ran a business that the kids had nothing to do with, and then those people are eligible.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's very helpful. I know in my previous work at the district level, we ran into some of those situations, and I do have to say the scrap tire unit is very helpful. So if you do have to run into any of these challenges, please reach out to any of them. They are here to help you and help walk through the ins and outs of all of the programs that they offer. So thank you. If you do want to go and briefly highlight your House Bill 33,
and
I
I'll
think
just
you do have a minute or so.
Yeah, I'll run through it really quick. So House Bill 33, if you go to look at it, it's over 4,000 pages long. So I just wanted to pull out some of the scrap tire specific provisions that are going in as potential statutory changes. So obviously this is just as introduced. So these could change as they move through the process, or they could get line item vetoed at the end. So it's not guaranteed that these will happen, but I did want to let you know they were in that House Bill 33. Some of the big ticket items is the financial assurance amount that we require our scrap tire transporters to carry. So that's if they leave tires behind, that the state doesn't have to pay for them to pick up. That is being reduced from $20,000 to $10,000, and that's to bring it in line with the states around us that actually require financial assurance. Some don't. But I think it's Michigan and Indiana only require 10,000, so we were coming into line with them. The fee that we charge, which is generally $300 to actually register each year for a scrap tire transporter, that fee is being waived. They'll still have to submit an application and get a registration, but they no longer have to pay for us to process that. Also making changes that allows some additional nonprofit or governmental bodies or civil organizations to be able to move scrap tires themselves without becoming registered or using a registered transporter, specifically when they're conducting a tire cleanup event or some kind of community amnesty collection event, and they have received written concurrence from Ohio EPA. So currently local governments can use their own vehicles and do cleanups and not need to get registered. And we're just broadening that a little bit for other folks that help out with cleanup events. The Scrap Tire Grant Fund will have some allowable uses expanded for that. Let's see. Previously, I think when Matt had talked about the enforcement tire cleanups being a little slower, part of the reason for that is by statute, we could not ask anyone to get their tires off in less than 120 days. Like we could give them milestones, but the statute says you provide someone 120 days to remove the tires. So we've submitted a statutory change to remove that 120-day limit. And it basically just says now that people have to remove scrap tires from their property in accordance with the orders that we issue. And if they fail to meet any of those milestones, we could mobilize early. So we wouldn't be stuck waiting 120 days. It's also adding in, and this one I should point out, we had into a previous budget bill and it did get line item vetoed at the end. So that's why I try and make it clear that even though I'm saying these now, they may not make it, but we had added the ability for when we go in to do these scrap tire cleanups, oftentimes there is a lot of other solid waste and C&D on site. And, you know, when you take the tires and you leave everything else behind, one, it looks really horrible. And two, it's like an attractive nuisance that people then come and dump tires again. So if this change is enacted, it would let us use scrap tire funds at those sites with tires to clean up the additional solid waste and C&D at the discretion of the director. Let's see. It also gives us the ability to recover those costs. So we could then apply those costs as a lien on the property where we cleaned it up. Let's see what else is going on. And then the other thing that we did change is previously, anytime we did an enforcement removal, we were required to place a lien on the property, and that would be changed to, again, at the discretion of the director as to whether or not she felt it was necessary to put a lien on. So most cases, you know, we would want to put a lien. There are some cases just have some really, truly horrible personal circumstances of how the tires got there and how the people got them, and they got enforcement. And, you know, maybe on a case-by-case basis, there might be some sites where it doesn't make sense to file a lien. But again, that would be at the director's discretion. And that pretty much sums up the scrap tire related changes in House Bill 33.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that review because we're all busy and we probably don't have 4,000 or time to read 4,000 pages and understand it completely. So thanks for that quick review. And thanks to the whole entire scrap unit for joining us today and providing us some updates, and lots of great things are happening. And hopefully that will start trickling down to the solid waste districts here very soon. Next, we're going to switch gears, and as Shannon maybe kind of mentioned, we're starting in with the US EPA grant. There's some driving towards diversity and equity and inclusion and some of these types of things. So we have Hamilton County. Michelle Balls is going to join us and talk about their Hamilton County R3 source diversity, equity, and inclusion study that they completed, and kind of get us all up to speed and figuring out, energizing around this topic.
Hello, everyone. And I hate when you share screen and then everything changes. So can you see my presentation?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. So Hamilton County Resource, I'm Michelle Balton, the solid waste manager, and I'm just going to go over a piece of our solid waste plan update that we did around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we really entered into this journey because we wanted to make sure that we were reaching all of the residents and businesses in Hamilton County, not just those with people who looked like us or with similar backgrounds or similar age. So we wanted to make sure we were reaching everybody. And I think that's really crucial for the work that we do. So I'm going to give just a quick update on our plan, where we're at, so you kind of have an idea. We are in the 30-day public comment period right now. That ends March 9th, where we have a public hearing on March 14th, and then we will enter into our 90-day ratification. So we're at the tail end. We started our process in May of 2021. This is what our county looks like. We have 48 political jurisdictions, very diverse communities and populations. We have urban, suburban, rural, everything in between. And so we run the gamut and felt the need to make sure we were reaching everybody. So in addition to our solid waste consultant, we also hired a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. And we hired Rice Education Consulting. I can't remember. I think we had 8 or 12 different companies bid on it. It was quite a few proposals to go through. And we landed on Rice, and they go by Redcon for short, if you hear me saying it that way. They are local to our county, so they're based in our county, but they do work all over the country. And they really had the best proposal in the end. So the full diversity, equity, inclusion, or DEI report is on our website, but we also incorporated it into the plan update. We just kind of added an appendix onto the end. And so we put most of it in that format and added it as an appendix. So honestly, this was all new territory for me, and it was very difficult to put together an RFP because I really didn't know what we needed. So luckily, Hamilton County has an Office of Economic Inclusion, and I met with their director and several times to go over kind of some ideas and what we needed and what deliverables would be most helpful. So he was really big on leaning on the DEI consultant to encourage stakeholder input, which was really helpful to us. So I'll go over each of these just to kind of explain what we did. So the first thing, probably the most obvious you would think of, is that we evaluated current programming. We couldn't afford to evaluate all of our programs. We have a lot. So we picked 5. We tried to choose ones that represented different audiences, kind of different, different types of programs. So we chose our technical assistance that we provide to schools, our technical assistance that we provide to businesses, multifamily recycling, our household hazardous waste drop-off, and our residential recycling campaigns. So the big takeaway from this evaluation was that we need to measure more demographic data. It was very hard for them to evaluate how well we were doing because we weren't able to give them stats on what, who was coming to our programs and who was using them. So we've already started implementing that and really just answering those questions that you see all the time when you register for things or take surveys about your age, your race. We have started asking those questions so that we can measure, and we make them optional too. We don't require people to answer, but most people do. The second deliverable that we worked with them on was evaluating our staff training. This was important because staff are creating new programs, they're delivering the programs, so we wanted to make sure that they had the proper training that they needed. And staff were taking some really great courses. They really were impressed with a lot of the courses that staff were taking and their interest. And most of them were not required, although we do have a few kind of civil treatment courses required through Hamilton County. So the overall takeaway here was that we needed an organizational training policy. We needed more uniformity in what classes the staff were taking, and that all staff take them. And that they also found that most staff were taking race-focused training, which was great, but we also needed some training on other disadvantaged groups, such as LGBTQ. The third kind of deliverable that they helped us with was stakeholder input. So they worked closely with our solid waste consultant on this because the solid waste consultant was really the lead on getting the stakeholder input. But they did take the lead on a minority business enterprise focus group. So this was focusing on women, small minority-owned businesses, that we had a virtual focus group. And their big takeaway here was to tap into existing communication channels. So, there's already these groups out there that you can work with. They introduced us to the local president of the NAACP, and now they are helping promote our job openings, our policy committee openings, which is a really great way to kind of tap into that network that's already there and pull in some more diversity. The fourth deliverable was evaluating new programs. So throughout the planning process, obviously you develop new things that you need to do or change your programs. And so they evaluated 3 new programs and identified its strengths and weaknesses, but then also kind of some recommendations on goals that we could have for it or ways that we could tweak the program to make them more accessible. Our household hazardous waste program, we have a lot of residents who don't drive. And in order to access the household hazardous waste program, you have to be able to drive. And you have to be off on a Saturday, which is not everybody. So, just pointing out things like that were really helpful to us. So the final thing was just writing the final report and delivering it, a presentation to our policy committee. They also included some really interesting things. If you look at just their report on like racial lens framework and some really interesting extra pieces that they kind of threw in there to help us out. So these were the goals that they developed with us and really for us so that we could kind of continue this and make this a priority in our work. Which I found really helpful. And obviously these are required on all our presentations for our social media. So that's all the time that I'll take. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Michelle. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to share all of this, and you've expanded. I would have no idea where to start with an RFP. So thankfully you had some resources right there in your own community that you were able to tap into, and thanks for starting the new adventure for probably most of us. So and recognizing some of those simple things that we definitely overlook of, maybe not everybody does have transportation or some of those other things. So thanks for leading the way and for your willingness to share your information and helping all the rest of us to maybe jump on board with this whole thing. And we do have a hand raised. Hannah?
Yeah, great presentation. Will that report be available for us to look at? Can you make it available? And then also I was curious if you all have thought much about ideas for reaching the
Hannah, you cut off again. I'm sorry.
Okay, did you hear some of my question?
We did. Reaching
went on to mute. Yeah, just if you had ideas for how to reach segments of your population that cannot drive or have access to transportation.
Yeah. So for the first part of the question, I'll put in the chat the link to our website. The report is on our website. We have it as separate, what they designed and delivered to us. But then I also took the text, the kind of the meat of it, and put it in as a final appendix. It's not all of it though. Like I didn't put the racial lens framework in there, those kinds of things. So it might be easier to read it in the way that they delivered it. But yeah, I'll put the link to that in the chat in a moment. Yeah, I mean, it's the delivering the having the programs, the drop-off programs accessible to people who don't have vehicles. That is something that is really difficult. I think curbside collection is probably the most obvious, but it's not always accessible as far as cost. It can be very expensive. For our household hazardous waste, we're looking at, can we have, instead of one big central drop-off, can we have communities participate where you would have a drop-off in your community? So it would be a little bit more accessible. You could walk there or ride the bus or, get something that's easier than having to drive all the way halfway across the county kind of thing. So we are considering, we don't have a silver bullet perfect solution, but it's just something that we're considering as we're developing the programs.
Thanks.
Great question. Anybody else have any other questions? Right. Well, feel free to reach out to Michelle. And if you do, and I think that was a great start to getting us to think outside the box a little bit more. And thank you. Next, we have our environmental supervisor from the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, and that is April Stevens. She had other Teams meeting this morning, and thanks for joining us and towards our later after piece to review some of the recycling litter grants that we've just submitted, and then also some updates on the US EPA grants.
Yeah, thanks. Yep, nope, timing was perfect. We were done a little after 11, so yep, no worries. So yeah, good morning, everyone. Just want to give a quick update on some grant stuff happening here at Ohio EPA. First, we will go through our grant program. So our applications closed on February 3rd. We received 178 applications this year. But that's because we included the water bottles into the online application this year. As you remember, probably remember we did that as just a paper application last summer and then incorporated it into our online application. So we typically get a little over 100 grants So we got around, very similar numbers of what we typically get, and then added in those 69 water bottle refilling station applications. So came in at just over 8.3 million in asks. So timeline. So right now we are in the technical review process. So our technical reviewers are scoring your applications, and then we should have those scores finalized by the end of next week. Once we kind of look and see, who is eligible on a scoring wise, we will start doing administrative and compliance reviews. That usually takes up to a month. We do a pretty deep dive to make sure there are no outstanding issues before we award grants. We're hoping to present our recommendations to Director Vogel in early May. And if that goes as planned, we will announce the awards in late May or early June. And then the grant spending would start on July 1st of this year. And then I don't have it on here, but the grant will open back up the first Monday in November of 2023. I think it's a little late. I think it's November 6th this year. So that is the Recycling and Litter Prevention Grant update. And then going into those US EPA grant opportunities. So the first one I want to talk about, there are two different ones that we've just recently applied for. The first one is the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling, or SWIFR grant. This one for states was a non-competitive allocation. They're telling us anywhere from 300 to 500,000 per state. The first step was to submit some programmatic factors that would then be used to determine the exact amount of funding per state. So we submitted those at the end of January, and so they are supposed to be letting us know how much money we get in April, and then we are currently working on the plan. So the eligible activities for this grant were to develop or update a plan to advance post-consumer material management, develop, strengthen, or implement comprehensive data collection efforts that show our progress towards the national recycling goal and the food loss and waste reduction goal, and then to support state-led implementation of plans. So this first round of funding, this is a 5-year funding program. This first year, they were looking mainly at planning, data collection, and I think the idea was to get an idea of where the states fell as far as needs, or hoping moving forward in subsequent years there will be funding for implementation. But right now it was mostly just for planning. So our plan that we're working on right now is we're going to focus on organics, and we're going to do that by doing a residential organics waste characterization study. We're going to be working with Ohio State University and the City of Columbus to look at household behaviors that can help be used to guide the development of outreach material that's customizable on a neighborhood level. Not every we all know that every city in Ohio isn't the same. Every community within those cities isn't the same. Like Michelle talked about in Cincinnati, there's a wide range of neighborhoods and, socioeconomic factors. So we're wanting to really draw down into that neighborhood level so that we can help tailor those messages to help increase organic waste collection. And then we'll also be looking at doing a comprehensive organics management plan that kind of helps lay out the flow of organic waste in Ohio, and what those opportunities are and needs for the reduction management. So looking at ways to then process that organic waste. So that's the SWIFR one. Again, we hope to hear something about our actual dollar amount funding next month, and we'll then be working to put together a finalized work plan. The other opportunity was the Recycling Education and Outreach Grant. This one was a competitive grant. And that was open to pretty much all local governments. So we did apply with help of quite a few of you. So I'm sure most of you know what's going on, but I wanted to just go ahead and give a full overview for those that don't. But so with this one, again, this one was on kind of planning and outreach and education as well. So the eligible activities with this one were, projects that encourage the collection of recyclable materials, and then they had these 3 goals that it must meet. So informing the public about residential or community recycling programs, providing information about recycled materials, what's accepted as part of those residential or community programs, and then and providing a separate collection of residential solid waste from recycling material, and then increasing collection rates and decreasing contamination in recycling and community recycling programs. So our plan, again, we are requesting just over $1 million for a business recycling in Ohio project. So we're working with solid waste management districts and businesses to increase collection of recyclables and improve markets for recyclable commodities, by limiting contamination. I've listed the 13 solid waste management districts that we've partnered with. All of these districts have some sort of existing business recycling program. So we're working with these 13 to kind of help guide the program in order to make it eligible and appropriate for all solid waste management districts in Ohio. So we're not leaving anybody out. We just kind of partnered with them to get their advice and help with best practices to make this available to statewide. And what we'll get out of this is a toolkit where businesses can access those best management practices and provide region-specific resources for the solid waste management districts and the businesses. So we'll do that through a toolkit that'll be accessed through Ohio EPA's website. So that is the update on the RIO grant. And that one, I think the timeline, I think we're looking at late summer, early fall for that one to find out if we're awarded that grant. So, and then if you have any questions about grants, this is our fabulous grant team, myself, Marie, and Carrie. Anything we can do to help answer questions on the grants, be happy to reach out, or any questions you have right now.
Thank you for taking the time to review all of those. I know that was a lot of information in a very short amount of time, but if you do have any questions about what was submitted or any of the grant processes or the grant process moving on for the litter and recycling grants that were just submitted, just reach out to April and her team. And thanks again for heading up all of these grants here at Ohio EPA.
Sure.
All
And
right.
Lindsay, thank you for all your help on these as well. So I don't want it to go unnoticed that Lindsay put a lot of effort into that RIO grant. So thank you for that. You've been a great asset.
All right. Well, that concludes the presentation and the informational portion kind of our meeting today. Now I turn it over to you. We have about 15 minutes of conversation time left for any of the organizations, the solid waste districts, to provide us any updates or any comments of what's going on for them. And we have one question already that came in, and it says, do any of you have any communities that have cities with trash contracts only without recycling? And I would say definitely yes. I know from my community, we had lots of, smaller municipalities that only had trash service and they did not have recycling. So you can probably reach out to any of the counties, but if you have any, if you can narrow that down, maybe we can help you out with more of what you're trying to hunt for. But that's a good question. Anybody else have any questions while she's narrowing down some of those? In the meantime, I do want to remind everyone that the Partners Conference is in October. It will be October 23 through 25 in Cincinnati. So you can reach out to those partnering agencies to get registered for that once the registration is open. I don't know when that opens, but look, at least put it on your calendars for October 23 through 25 in Cincinnati. I did send out a request that if you are a district that is supporting or sponsoring an Earth Day or Arbor Day event, I did get a few of them. Please send them our way. We're hoping to start, kind of including that a little brief in the newsletter, and then just trying to support the solid waste districts moving forward. And if you are a district that has a locally ran MRF, please respond to the plastic recovery doodle poll that was sent out. We are trying to get that meeting scheduled and confirmed. And one other update that was sent to my way is that AOR is going to be, if you're an AOR member, make sure that you have it on your radar the Rumpke Glass Plant tour that will be hosted in April. Anybody else have any other questions, comments, updates? This is the time for you to speak. Well, thank you for joining us today. Our next meeting will be the first Thursday of the last quarter of the month, or the next quarter. So that will be June 1st. So mark your calendars for June 1st for our next Ohio EPA, Ohio Solid Waste District Management Work Group. And it will again be a virtual meeting. We are hopeful that we can work with Oslato to get an in-person meeting, a joint in-person meeting in August, but that is still in the works. So our next time that we will get together will be in June. And I hope that you are able to have a successful Earth Day and Arbor Day events. And as spring has sprung, it's kind of hard to believe that it's 70 degrees in February, but all of our events are kind of quickly approaching with the weather being nicer outside. And we wish you the best on all of your events and keep doing the great work that you all are doing. And again, if you need any, need us to help brainstorm on anything, please make sure that you reach out to us and we will help you get off to a good start or get you in contact with those that you may need. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you again in June if nobody else has anything left. Thanks, everyone. Bye.